I suspected my wife was hiding something. What I discovered changed everything. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to write something like this. I've spent years scrolling through Reddit stories, half convinced most of them were made up or exaggerated. Turns out, reality has a dark sense of humor, because now I'm living one of those stories myself. My name's Daniel. I live in Chicago, where the winters bite hard and the nights are too long for people with restless minds. I've been married to my wife Claire for almost 4 years. Before that, we dated for 2. We had the usual ups and downs, nothing that ever made me question her loyalty or my love for her. She was the person I built my future around, or at least I thought she was. About 3 months ago, I started noticing little changes. Nothing dramatic at first, just subtle shifts. She'd keep her phone face down on the table, leave the room to answer texts, or suddenly get defensive if I asked who she was talking to. She'd been working longer hours too, claiming her company was in crunch mode. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way she avoided eye contact started gnawing at me. I told myself I was being paranoid. I'd seen too many online stories like this, and maybe they were seeping into my head. Still, one night, when she went to take a shower, I saw her phone light up on the nightstand. A text preview from someone named Ryan. Can't wait to see you again. Same place? My stomach dropped. When she came back out, I was still sitting there pretending to be half asleep, my heart pounding in my chest. She kissed my forehead like she always did and whispered, "Good night, babe." I could feel my pulse in my throat. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I told myself to calm down. Maybe Ryan was a coworker, maybe it was innocent. I mean, people joke, right? But my gut wouldn't let it go. Over the next few days, I started noticing more. New clothes, fresh perfume she never used before, and this quiet hum of guilt in her voice when she'd tell me she loved me. It felt forced, rehearsed, like she was saying it to convince herself. One night, I overheard her talking softly in the living room. I could barely make out the words, but I heard lawyer, papers, and he'll never see it coming. My chest went cold. I felt like I'd stepped out of my own life and into someone else's nightmare. That night, I sat in the dark, replaying everything in my head. If she was planning to leave me, fine, I could handle heartbreak. But if she was plotting something underhanded, maybe trying to clean me out financially, that was another story. I'd worked hard for everything I had. The house, the car, my business, they weren't gifts. I built them from scratch. I decided right then that if Claire was preparing to play dirty, I wasn't going to sit around and wait to be blindsided. I was going to protect myself, quietly, calmly, and completely. The next morning, while she was at work, I contacted an old college friend who's now an attorney. I didn't tell him everything, just that I wanted to move some assets around for security reasons. He helped me transfer part of my savings into a separate account under a different business entity, something perfectly legal but hidden enough that it wouldn't show up in a simple bank inquiry. It gave me a strange sense of control again. Meanwhile, I kept playing the role of the oblivious husband. I made dinner, asked about her day, smiled through the unease, but every time she texted, every time she smiled at her phone, I felt that knife twist a little deeper. A week later, she mentioned she was going out for a team dinner. I told her to have fun. The moment she left, I followed her. Not immediately, just enough time for her to think she was in the clear. My heart was hammering as I drove behind her car, keeping distance. She ended up downtown, parking near a hotel. She went inside. I waited in my car for 20 minutes before curiosity and pain got the better of me. I walked in and asked the front desk if Ryan Matthews had checked in. The clerk nodded and said, "Yes, ma'am, he's in room 804. I didn't go up. I didn't need to." I just walked out into the freezing Chicago air, the city lights blurring through my tears. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my car. It was real. Everything I feared was real. That night, she came home late, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. She slipped into bed beside me and whispered, "Sorry it got so late. The team dinner ran long." I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart numb, but I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. Because if Claire was truly planning what I thought she was about to find out that I wasn't as naive as she believed. So, over the next few days, something in me changed. I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling focused, detached even. When I looked at Claire, I didn't see my wife anymore. I saw someone trying to outplay me. Every smile, every casual "love you" felt like a move in a game I hadn't agreed to play. I started paying closer attention. Her laptop passwords had changed. She began locking the bedroom door when she was on video calls for work. And she started dropping little hints about how life can surprise you, or people change. It felt like she was soft launching her exit, emotionally preparing herself to walk away clean. But what she didn't know was that I was already 2 steps ahead. I'd met with my lawyer again and set up a quiet legal firewall, transferring my business ownership temporarily to my brother, moving property titles, and updating beneficiaries. Everything looked the same on paper, but the actual control was no longer traceable to me directly. If she tried to blindside me with a divorce and take half, she'd find a ghost where my assets used to be. It sounds cold, I know. But when someone starts playing games with your trust, you either protect yourself or get destroyed. I wasn't about to be a victim in my own marriage. One evening, she came home unusually cheerful. She was humming, cooking dinner, acting like the perfect wife. It was almost too perfect. I watched her from across the kitchen, and it hit me. This woman, who once shared everything with me, was now living a second life right under my nose, and I was pretending not to notice. That night, she told me she'd be flying to a conference in Denver for 3 days. My gut screamed that it was another lie. So the morning she left, I checked her flight online. No booking under her name. Instead, her credit card showed a charge for a boutique hotel right here in Chicago. My jaw clenched. She hadn't even left the city. So I did what any desperate broken man would do. I followed her again. She met up with Ryan, same guy from the text. He looked slick, confident, the kind of guy who probably thought he was the main character in his own romantic movie. They hugged, kissed, and went inside a cafe like they were just another couple grabbing coffee on a Saturday morning. I stood across the street, invisible among the crowd, my chest tightening with every second. I wanted to storm in, scream, demand answers, but I didn't. Because anger gives away power, and I wasn't going to lose control. Instead, I took photos, timestamps, proof, evidence that would matter later if things went south legally. Later that day, I confronted my lawyer again and explained everything, not the emotional side, just the facts. He nodded slowly and said, "You did the right thing protecting yourself early. If she files, she's in for a surprise." A week later, I got my confirmation. Claire came home one evening, pale and quiet. She barely touched dinner. Afterward, she sat me down at the table, her hands trembling. "Daniel," she said, "we need to talk." I just nodded, pretending not to know. She told me she wasn't happy anymore, that she needed to find herself, and that it wasn't about anyone else. I could almost laugh at how scripted it sounded. Then she slid a folder across the table. Divorce papers. She said she'd already spoken to her lawyer. Inside, I was ice cold. Outside, I just nodded. "I understand," I said, as calmly as I could. "If that's what you want." Her eyes flickered with confusion. I think she expected me to break down, to beg or argue. Instead, I said, "You could have the car, and I'll cover your living expenses for a few months. But I want the house and the business." She blinked. "That's not how this works," she said quietly. "We'll split everything, 50-50. I smiled, not out of arrogance, but because the trap had already closed. "Actually," I said, "there's not much left to split." The color drained from her face. I told her I'd already restructured the company, that my assets weren't legally tied to my personal name anymore, and that the accounts she thought she could claim were empty. Her jaw tightened, eyes filling with panic. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her confidence. She tried to play it off, saying, "That's not fair, Daniel." I leaned back and said, "Neither is lying to me for months." That's when her facade finally broke. She started crying, not tears of heartbreak, but frustration, like a con artist whose plan had just fallen apart. The next morning, she packed a suitcase and left. No dramatic goodbye, no apology, just quiet rage. I stood by the window and watched her drive away, my chest hollow but oddly calm. It was over. 2 weeks later, I got an email from her lawyer. She'd officially filed for divorce, but when the financial disclosures came in, she realized what I'd done. The business wasn't in my name anymore. The savings had been moved, and most of what she thought she could take was legally untouchable. Her lawyer must have told her she didn't have much leverage because the tone changed overnight. Suddenly, she was calling me again. First about closing details, then about talking things through, and finally about maybe giving it another shot. It was surreal. The same woman who'd been ready to gut me financially was now acting like she missed me. I met her once in a coffee shop near the lake. She looked tired, smaller somehow. She said, "Daniel, I made a mistake. Ryan wasn't who I thought he was. He just disappeared after I filed. I think he was using me." I didn't say anything for a while. I just stared at her, remembering the nights I'd stared at the ceiling, wondering how I'd lost her. Then I said, "I'm sorry that happened, Claire, but you made your choice." Her eyes watered, and for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But I remembered every lie, every whisper, every text she hid from me, and that guilt turned to steel. That was the last time I saw her in person. The divorce finalized quietly a month later. She moved to another city, and I heard she started over somewhere down south. I didn't look her up again. I didn't need to. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close I came to losing everything. Not just the money, but myself. Trust is a fragile thing. Once it cracks, it never really heals the same way. Do I miss her? I don't know. I miss the person I thought she was. But the truth? I think the woman I loved existed only in my memories, not in the reality that unfolded before me. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that betrayal doesn't happen in one explosive moment. It happens slowly, quietly, in the small lies people tell themselves before they hurt you. And by the time you see it, it's already too late. I'm not proud of everything I did, but I don't regret protecting myself. Because, in the end, when someone plans to destroy your life behind your back, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking away with your peace, your dignity, and your future intact. And that's exactly what I did.